Do you get bored in meditation and get distracted by thoughts of other things you could be doing? So in this week's live stream, we're going to be looking at how you can work with those impulses and reach a deeper level of concentration. So very, very warm welcome to you. My name is Viryanaga, so I'm an ordained member of the Craving Buddhist order and a teacher at the Brixton Buddhist community. So, and what we're going to be doing tonight is we're just going to explore what I'm going to call sense desire, craving for sense desire, and how to work with it in meditation. But we'll also have a couple of short led meditations as well. So we'll do a short body scan meditation in order to get settled before I talk about tonight's theme. And then I'm going to lead us later on in a 20-minute led meditation. And throughout at the end of the stream, we're going to have an opportunity to answer any questions you've got. So throughout the stream, if anything occurs to you that you want to ask me, or that about what I'm saying, or about your meditation practice, then do write them in the comments box on the YouTube live stream, and we'll be able to just answer those for you towards the end. So there's no silly questions, so do just write in anything you want, and we might have to pick out a few, but we'll do our best. I'll do my best to answer them. So yeah, I hope you're all doing really, really well. I hope you're getting by wherever you're doing. And over the course of this last series of this 5-week series, over the last 3 weeks, I've been exploring different hindrances along with different antidotes. And what I've said throughout is that there's a range of different antidotes that you can use for any sort of hindrance, but particularly I've paired them up, partly because they're how I use them myself, but I've paired them up into these sets. So tonight it's going to be looking at the hindrance of sense desire, and particularly the antidote of suppression, which is actually not very often talked about. So I'm very interested and excited to talk about it on tonight's meditation live stream. But to start with, we're going to do a little bit of meditation, just a very short meditation, 5 or 10 minutes, just to help us get settled and help us arrive. So what you need to do is get set up for that. But you don't need to sit on the floor, or you don't need cushions if you don't have them. What you can do is just in your chair, just sort of get prepared and just sit in meditation. And the best thing to do is just sit upright with your back kind of upright and poised, but not too stiff, and just have your feet on the floor. And if you're sitting down, you're probably familiar with meditation posture. So again, just sitting upright and comfortable. So if you want to, you can just close your eyes. And I'm just going to lead us through, so you don't need to worry about anything else. And what I want you to do first is just bring your awareness low in the body. So particularly noticing the contact with the ground, or the cushions, or the chair. And what I particularly want you to do is tune into the sensations. So you might particularly notice the sensations of pressure as you sit on the chair or cushions. So particularly on your backside and your thighs. So just noticing that contact with the chair or the cushions. And so what this is helping us to do is straight away get out of our thinking mind, get out of our heads and get into our bodies. And there's a lot of sensation that happens in the body all the time, but we're just not tuned into it much of our day-to-day lives. So just tuning into sensations in the lower part of the body. And you can just explore that a little. You can explore your legs, your knees, your feet, your toes, and you're trying to just be open to any sensation. So you might have sensations that feel broadly pleasant, or maybe aches and pains that feel broadly unpleasant. But that's okay. We're just noticing, just being aware of what sensations are present for us. And then you can bring your awareness a bit higher in the body. And I'm just going to suggest we rest our awareness on our bellies at the moment, on our stomachs. And you might like to just take a deeper breath or two, right into the belly if you can, right into the stomach. And then breathe out again. And you might just want to do this 2 or 3 times. And And then with your belly, your stomach, just seeing how that feels, and just seeing particularly if you notice any tightness. It's very easy for us to hold our stomachs in as we go about our day, but you can just relax your stomach, just have a soft belly. And then we can come up a bit further to the heart and chest. And just see what sensations you notice there. You might notice physical sensations in the body. So if you're feeling a bit unwell, you might have a bit of tightness in your chest, or a bit of your lungs might feel a bit clogged. But we're just being aware of whatever's there. And around the heart area, we particularly also might feel emotions, sort of emotions expressing in the body. So you can just keep a broad awareness of the body sensations, and you might just want to note if those feel broadly pleasant or unpleasant. They can be indicators of our current emotional state. So you might notice a closeness, for instance, or an openness, a warmth, or a kind of hardness. All of those are okay. They just mirrors or echoes of our emotional states. They don't necessarily mean anything huge, but they might just be how we're feeling at the moment. So you can just tune in to any sensations around the heart or chest. And then we can come up the body again, particularly to the shoulders, taking a moment or two to check that the shoulders are soft if we can, see if we can let them sink down slightly. Perhaps feel the weight of the arms pulling the shoulders down. And then up, you can bring our awareness up again to the head. And you can spend a lot of time exploring the sensations in the head and face, but you probably particularly want to spend a bit of time with your awareness around your forehead, around your eyes. You might be aware of some tension or tightness. After all, we use these muscles to make expressions and communicate with others. But we could just let those muscles soften and relax if we do notice any tightness or tension. And then it's also worth spending a little bit of time on the mouth and jaw. And again, it's a very big muscle that we use a lot, both to eat and to talk. So you may just want to let your jaw soften. If you notice that you're grinding your teeth, you could perhaps let your mouth just hang down ever so slightly. All the while just tuning into sensations that we can feel around the mouth or jaw. And again, you might only notice it as tension, but that's okay. We're just tuning into that. And just by bringing awareness to those areas, we just help to soften them. And then from the mouth, you might just want to pick up a few breaths just as they enter your mouth or nose. And you can just follow these back down into your chest, into your diaphragm. Maybe just again waiting around the heart or chest area, aware of the breath, aware of your body breathing, aware of how you are just now. Perhaps being aware of how doing a quick body scan has changed your experience, in whatever way that is. You might be a bit more aware that you have tensions that you didn't know you had, but you might also feel more open, expansive, and grounded. And then when you're ready, and in your own time, you can just start to bring this short body scan meditation to a close. Great, so always good to do a short meditation to just connect us and ground us before we begin thinking about other things. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is what we call sense desire. I'll unpack that for you in a minute, and particularly one response to that, or one way of managing and working with that, which in this case I'm going to talk about suppression, which again is another traditional term, but let me unpack that for you. So firstly, I should explain what sense impressions are. I mean, maybe this is obvious, but we've got our five senses, so sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And in Buddhism, we also recognize a sixth sense. So in Buddhism, recognizes the mind as another sense, so thoughts arising in the mind as a way of gathering a sense impression. And if you look very closely at your experience, what you will see is that before you get into thinking about an experience or judging an experience or understanding it in any more depth or even labeling it, there'll be an initial response to the sense impression of sort of a pleasurable experience, a painful experience, or a fairly neutral one. So that's sort of automatic. We can't do anything about that in particular. It just kind of arises as a result. So we meet an object either through our eyes, we hear a sound, we smell something, we taste something, we touch something, or we think something, and there'll be this immediate response, a pleasure response or a painful response. And the way that a lot of people go around living their lives is to try to maximize the sort of pleasurable responses and minimize the painful ones. And in a certain way, that's sort of fair enough. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Even Buddhism in a way talks about one of the aims as the aims of practicing Buddhism is reducing suffering in our experience. The difference is that what can happen is that if we're chasing after a pleasurable experience, we're looking for more and more of that. It's very easy for us to get into get habituated to it very easily, or just get into wanting more and more of it. So if you've got a situation whereby there's something that's enjoyable, I don't know about you, but it's so easy to then get into wanting more of it, or wanting a higher level of it. I guess the very sort of mundane example might just be that you're sitting down and having a nice meal, and actually as you're eating it, you're thinking about having seconds, or you're thinking about dessert. So, you're not sort of then fully present with the pleasure that you're getting from eating the meal in the first place. And if this sort of pattern carries on, it can easily lead to like obsessions with certain things, or even in its worst form of it, addictions, whereby you can't kind of get away from it. I mean, it's so easy to, another sort of probably day-to-day example is, watching an episode of something on Netflix, and it might be very enjoyable, but then you're quickly into the next episode. Very easy to just watch the next one and the next one, and just continue with that, enjoying or trying to get that pleasure from that or whatever it is you're watching until it's very late in the evening or very late in the morning in some cases. So this kind of desire for more pleasure or more sense experience can be stronger when we're feeling a bit unfulfilled. So when we're feeling a bit unsatisfied or unfulfilled emotionally or spiritually speaking. And given our current situation, given that most of us are kind of locked down in our houses and can only kind of go out once a day, There's a lot of scope for this at the moment. So maybe you haven't seen your friends in a long while, you're lacking social contact if you've been on your own for a while, or maybe you live apart from your partner and you're either missing them, you're missing their affection, or there's a lot of sexual craving that is going unfulfilled. And then also you probably can't get hold of all the foods that you want, or you can't visit your favourite restaurant, or you can't go on a long walk, or go on a holiday, or so on. So there's a lot of opportunity there for kind of feeling unsatisfied in our kind of day-to-day experience, particularly if we're used to having things a certain way. And in this case, there'll probably be I speak for myself, you can get into a kind of sense of there being a bit of emptiness and looking to kind of fulfill that in another way and displace it with something else. So the classic might be comfort eating, helping yourself to any sweet treats you've got left in your house. Or another, probably I imagine quite typical one at the moment, is probably just distracting yourself by looking at your phone. I have to constantly work against this impulse to look at the news, or social media, or even perhaps YouTube, even perhaps the very medium that you might be watching this on today. So the thing to say is that kind of, in Buddhism technically we'd call that craving for sense experience, but that kind of wanting for a certain sense experience is very, very common. So it's not a particular, you don't need to worry about it so much, but it can be there sort of underlying our whole experience all the time, but it can also be both quite subtle or quite strong. And if you are a sort of practicing Buddhist and you've been on some longer retreats, you might be very familiar with it, because it's often something that comes up quite strongly after a couple of weeks, particularly if you're doing a solitary retreat and have been on your own for a while. Sort of craving for sense experience, wanting sense experience can come up very strongly. So you need to find ways of working with it effectively. But basically the general summary is that this craving is a sort of wanting of an experience that we're not currently having, and it creates this sense of dissatisfaction, or even in some cases quite strong suffering. So what does that look like in meditation? Well, particularly in meditation, it follows the same pattern. So it's a desire for wanting a different experience than we're currently having. So you may sit down to meditate and find actually you're quite bored. What's going on is not engaging enough. And so what does the mind do? Well, it reaches out and tries to grab other experiences that it could have. Yeah. So you might fall into fantasizing about food or sex or entertainment. You might be thinking about a great movie you're going to watch. In some cases you might also think about a project that you're doing, or even work that you're doing, or plan for the next thing. So you've got kind of thoughts of the future, things that you're thinking about that you could be doing instead of meditating, and it often comes out of this sense of boredom. Another typical one is to replay stories of the past. So it's quite easy. Well, I'll again speak for myself. I can sit down to meditate and find I'm replaying stories of things that have just happened. Usually, I must say, situations where that didn't quite go how I wanted to go, and I'd often be replaying them, but changing the scenario where I come out on top, or I win the argument, or I've got that great comeback that I didn't have at the time that I wish I had. So you can also get into not kind of noticing your current experience, but thinking about a past experience, and again basically wanting a different experience, wanting an alternative outcome. So they might be familiar to you. A third, more subtle example might be a kind of wanting or a craving for a higher spiritual experience. So particularly wanting a kind of sense of joy, or a sense of bodily rapture, a sense of concentration, even perhaps insight, wanting insight to arise. And of course, paradoxically, or even ironically, what happens is that if that wanting, that just then blocks access to any sense of real concentration or focus in meditation anyway. So these are all kind of expressions of this hindrance of sense desire. So perhaps you recognise some of those in your experience. So a particular warning sign, like I say, is a sense of boredom. So, but it all comes out of this place of not being quite content or fulfilled by our current experience, not being able to tune into our current experience. But of course, if we can have a sort of open, more pleasurable, or open, not even pleasurable, but more equanimous kind of attitude to what's actually going on at the moment, it can mean that we can open up to something deeper and richer. So I want to be very clear that this hindrance isn't the pleasure itself. Yeah. So if you are enjoying your meditation or enjoying your experience, there's actually no harm in that. In fact, it's very, very positive, and it should really be encouraged. We do need a sense of looking for pleasure or finding pleasure in our meditation experiences in order to keep us going. Particularly what I'm getting at here is the hindrance is the craving or the wanting of something different than what we've got at the moment. And that can actually both be positive and negative, but I guess it comes out particularly in terms of things that we associate with pleasurable experience, because it's quite, in a way, seductive. Yeah, it's quite easy to fall into thinking about this or thinking about that. Things that have brought you pleasure or may bring you pleasure in the future. So do just keep watch out for those. What I want to offer up now is a possible potential antidote. So I will just say that over the course of these 5 videos, I've been exploring a range of different antidotes to common hindrances in meditation, and several of those will work well on sense desire. So particularly ones like cultivating the opposite and considering the consequences, which I cover in other videos. So you can see those as well. But this time I wanted to pair this one up with what's traditionally called suppression. So I'll unpack that in a moment. But I was really interested in exploring this one in a bit more depth, because often when I've seen it taught, it's very traditional teaching, by the way, but often when I've seen it taught, it tends to be a bit disregarded. It tends to be a bit like people seem to say, oh, well, don't worry so much about that. It doesn't really work that often, and it's only really used for quite small or subtle hindrances. So I don't particularly subscribe to that myself. It's definitely a traditional teaching, and if you look back at some of the ancient Buddhist scriptures where a lot of the words of the Buddha come out of, particularly the Pali Canon, this antidote of suppression is mentioned many times, along with the other antidotes that we've been exploring, and indeed the hindrances in this series. So it seemed to be a core teaching, core meditation teaching of the Buddha himself. So I wondered why it hasn't been explored so fully as the other antidotes, perhaps. And firstly, a friend of mine suggested that perhaps it's misunderstood as repression. So repression, I think it's a sort of psychological language, but particularly one that's associated with not acknowledging an emotion or an experience, i.e. the sense that it's not happening. You just push it away, you push it down, you lock it in a cupboard, and you forget all about it. Of course, we know that doesn't really help because it just comes out sideways. So I want to be very clear that what we're talking about in terms of what we're talking about as suppression is not repression. Yeah, we're not not acknowledging something. Suppression, as as I'm using it here, means basically sort of saying, giving a bit of a no or a not now to that particular thought or that particular desire. It does involve, in order to say that, one must be aware, first of all. You must be aware of what's in your experience. And then the suppression is more a case of kind of just holding it at bay. So you're not pushing it away, because we probably know that anything in meditation that we try to push away immediately comes back twice as strong. So what we're trying to do is just hold it down, if you like, pin it down, hold it there to stop it growing, to stop it perpetuating. And what we usually find is that it will then weaken and soften and won't bother us so much. So an analogy that another friend suggested to me it might be thinking a bit like parenting a young child. So if our mind was like the young child, and it was trying to get our attention from us, so it's sort of pulling at our jumper or our trousers. And it's saying, Dad, trying to get your attention, or Mum, of course. It doesn't work to just ignore the child, because it just then he or she will just get louder and louder and be more and more annoying. And it also doesn't work to shout at them and push them away, because then they'll just burst into tears and will create a whole big scene, like wherever you are, maybe you're in the supermarket, and then that's no good either. But what you can do is you can acknowledge the child, and you can say quite a firm, not now, darling, I'm just doing this, I'll be with you in a moment, I'm just paying for the shopping, or I'm just speaking to this person, not now, not now. And what it does is it just buys you a bit of time, yeah, it buys you a bit of time and space just to finish what you're doing. And in this case, I guess we are meditating, yeah, we're meditating. So you can do that with these kind of desires, these wants. Yeah, they may be that ultimately they need to be, sometimes even they need to be indulged a little bit. But at the moment, if you're sitting down to meditate, you don't want them hindering you getting into concentration. So we're trying to acknowledge, we're trying to hold them down, and hopefully after a while they will just go away, or they'll leave us in peace, at least for a little while. And the idea is once we've overcome these hindrances, once we've weakened them, concentration will naturally develop in our meditation experience. And when you become concentrated or fully concentrated, or well, maybe not fully, but at least more concentrated, you'll have the sense of all of your kind of energy gathering around the object of the meditation. So it might be the breath, or it might be the body, or it might be other people, depending on what meditation practice you're doing. But once you've got a degree of energy and concentration around the object of meditation, you won't need to suppress thoughts coming in, not so strongly. You'll be able to treat them very, very lightly. So you don't need to hold these things down anymore. So what you're doing in suppressing is just holding them down just long enough for us to get into more concentration. And then it sort of takes care of itself, more or less. So I would say this antidote of suppression, I haven't really come up with a better word for it, but holding it down maybe, pinning it down, is particularly helpful when you've got cravings that have particular patterns. So maybe I've got a sweet tooth, so it's very easy for me to think about having something nice and tasty and sweet to eat. So it's a familiar pattern. So when it comes into my mind, I just know I've got it worked out. I just know that that's not a helpful thought to have in meditation. Yeah, I don't need to think about it. I just know. I just want to block it. I just want to say no. Just want to say no, not now, and just push it away. Yeah. So it's particularly good for those things. So you get to know yourself. You know what's coming up. You know what comes up a lot in meditation. You recognise it. You notice it. You pin it down. So it's very, very handy for small distractions, things which don't have too much power. But I would also say it actually does work, surprisingly, for quite strong ones as well. So again, you need to be quite clear that it's not a helpful pattern, but it can be quite. You can handle that quite strongly. So I was thinking, particularly if you're trying to give up smoking, perhaps, or you're in a situation where you're experiencing a lot of craving, you can work with it in this effective way. So, for one example, give you a personal example. One personal example was that when I was ordained, I was on a 4-month retreat up in the Spanish mountains, and I'd just recently got into a new relationship, and the relationship, that sort of early period, there's a lot of attachment, a lot of love, and there was a lot of sexual energy as well. So I was up in this mountain retreat centre, had about another 3 months to go, and I was just experiencing a lot of desire for my new partner, a lot of sexual craving to go with it, and so at some point I just went round and round and round with it, and at some point I just had to say, no, enough. I'm not going to think about this. This is not helpful right now. Because of course there's nothing I could do. I had another 3 months to go on the retreat, so it wouldn't have done me any good to keep thinking about that. So I'd already done all that working out, so all that was left for me to do was just say no, just to say no to that experience. And quite quickly after doing that a few times, after a few meditation practices, it sort of dropped away, and I had a rather more spacious and more content retreat. So give it a go, and try it out with your own patterns and your own thoughts, and see how it goes. I would just say, if you notice in meditation that there's a kind of new desire that arises, a new craving for something, for some sense experience that you've not encountered before, or a very, very persistent one, it might be worth trying another antidote first. Yeah, it might be worth trying something like cultivating the opposite, or thinking about it a bit more fully before you're you then try to apply this antidote of suppression. And if actually there's other things you can also do outside of meditation. So if you've got a particular tendency one way or another, and a particular pattern of craving or wanting, there's also exercises you can do outside of meditation. So there are very traditional Buddhist reflections called Ashubha reflections, and they're basically kind of reflections on the unbeautiful. Yeah, so things that we want are usually beautiful or enjoyable in some way, but of course we usually have a bit of a skewed perception of them, particularly if we're a bit obsessed by something. We can just tend to see their good points. This will also be quite true of people, of course, as well. So this reflection is to also to basically bring balance to that, to also reflect on maybe the things that are unbeautiful or unpleasant about them, and that can just help to free up our attraction to them. Yeah, it can break that illusion of appeal that we've got to them. I guess a classic example might be where we fall for somebody, we fall in love, and that love is unrequited, and therefore it can be quite painful for us to continue to project onto or idolise that person. So a really good way to help us with that is just to cultivate a fuller sense of the person, both of their the positives and also their flaws as well. So that can just help to break some of that illusion of that appeal. But of course it applies to all sorts of things as well, whether that's your favourite TV programme, your favourite meal, whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. Anyway, so I hope that gives us a bit of a sense of both sense desire and one of the ways you might work with that by holding down or pinning down or suppressing the impulse that arises. Hopefully you'll have a sense of sense desire in your own experience, your own wanting of different experience, but maybe the pinning down or the suppression is a bit harder to get to. So what I thought I would do is lead us in a guided meditation now, about 20 minutes, and that will just, hopefully I'll lead us through a couple of exercises to try and give us a sense of that. But I'd also just say that if you did have any questions or thoughts that arose during the course of that description, do stick them in the chat box, because after we've done this meditation there'll be an opportunity for me to take some questions and answer your live questions. Yeah, good. And also the same goes for your meditation experience as well. So if you want to get yourself set up again for meditation, so I'm just going to get a drink of water. And I'll lead us in this led meditation. So if you've never meditated before, if you don't know common meditation practices, that's absolutely okay. I'm just going to lead us through. So all you have to do is just listen along with me and just see what your experience is like. Okay, so get yourself anything you need, any cushions or anything, or get yourself set up in your chair. Again, you want an upright posture that's relaxed, not too stiff, not too tight. Nicely balanced with the head on top of the spine, and try to find something to rest your hands on as well. You can rest them in your lap or on a cushion, in a blanket, and you can just start by taking a deeper breath or two. You can close your eyes if you're happy to, and very quickly we're just going to ground ourselves again by bringing the awareness low in the body. Or weight on the chair or cushion, sense of our legs, feet, toes. Coming up into the body, arms, shoulders. Just checking again, the face is soft, the eyes, the jaw. And then we can bring our awareness to rest around the heart area, around the chest area. We're particularly going to use this area of the body as the anchor. We can keep a broad awareness of the body as well, but particularly attending to the heart and chest area. And as I said before in the body scan, this can be an area where we can experience particular emotions, or get a sense of our general sort of state of our body and mind. And you're just sort of looking for an open awareness kind of curiosity, a lightness of touch. No need to focus in too tightly. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just see if you can settle for a minute or so. So I'm just going to stop saying so much. You can just try to notice, be aware of your emotional state, maybe the breath in your chest. Just allowing yourself to settle. So you can just let your body breathe. There's no need to do anything special, just waiting, just settling. Okay, and what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to bring to mind something that's desirable to you. So just an image of your mind, and I'd recommend picking something fairly mild and easy to obtain, like a hot shower or a bowl of ice cream, your favourite flavour, the smell of roses, or your favourite flower. So just imagine something brings you pleasure that you desire. Particularly one that gives you a strong sense experience. Just seeing if you can imagine that as fully as possible. Perhaps imagining that experience, that sense impression, that sense experience that comes along with the object. Maybe noticing if that image brings a pleasurable sensation, or even a neutral one or a negative one, an unpleasant sensation. Again, just waiting for a moment with that in your mind, with that image. Just giving ourselves a chance to have an emotional response. Now I want you to just see if you can set aside that object in your mind and just seeing if you can bring any awareness to that kind of desire, that sense of desire, that sense of wanting, maybe even longing. What does that feel like in the body? Do you notice a bodily sensation connected with that? Where might you find it in your body? And what does that feel like? Does that feel pleasant, unpleasant, or again, is it fairly neutral? So you may not get it first time. You may not feel that desire as a separate experience. But if you're not sure, you can just wait with a broad awareness in the body and just see what you notice, see what your experience is like at the moment. Okay, so now try to bring the object back to mind. See if you can again imagine that sense object, a sense impression, the experience that you have when you're engaged with it, whether you're in the shower or eating the ice cream, or smelling the flowers. Okay, and seeing if you can just then apply the antidote of suppression. Just see if you can hold it off. Seeing if you can hold it there in your mind, but without kind of chasing it, without kind of wanting it or craving it. You're just aware that that image is there, but seeing if you can soften around the craving just by saying to yourself, no, not now. And what you're looking for particularly is your awareness resettling down, stilling down, sense of equanimity, settling into the body or the breath. Sense of less distraction. Our energy being less scattered. So just checking in how that is for you. So you might find that you're able to let that thing go quite easily, which is great. But you might also find that wanting is still there. Maybe you're thinking that after you're done here, you'll go off and do that thing. So just seeing if you can again put that down, just seeing if you can wait just until the meditation's finished with a sense of contentment. That you don't need that thing right now, you're okay to sit here a little longer. Okay, so we can practice that again. So the more times we practice it, the better we will get. So let's pick a different image now. Let's pick another image that you find desirable. Maybe this time you could pick something that you've wanted for quite a while. Yeah, maybe you've got something on your Amazon wish list that you keep thinking about. Maybe you've got something you'd like to do when we finish our period social distancing that keeps coming up in your mind. So bring that up and just firstly notice the immediate response in the body. So you might notice a craving arise, a tightness, a wanting, a clingingness. So you just tune into that first of all. What does that feel like? Where is that coming from? Does that feel pleasurable or unpleasurable? Or is it neutral? So I notice in particular, along with the thing that I want, I notice a tightness arising, a tension arising around that thing, around that wanting. So again, just seeing if you can separate those two in your mind. Maybe you could put the image aside just for the moment and just see if you can connect with that wanting. Just seeing if you can experience it, see what it feels like. If you recognize a tightening, seeing if you can see where that is in the body, what that feels like. And then let's try again to pin it down. So you bring the image in again. What is it that you're wanting? What is it that you're craving? And then just see if you can say to yourself, this isn't helpful. I'm meditating just now, not now. Not now. And bring your awareness in particular to where you're grounding this meditation, so in the heart and chest area. So bring that curiosity, bring that awareness into your body, away from the object, away from the thoughts, away from the craving, the wanting. Seeing if you can become interested in your bodily experience, the sensations of the body, your emotional state. And as long as you aren't being drawn off elsewhere, all you need to do is wait. Just wait here, and concentration and stillness will naturally arise. If you find again that you're bored and you're thinking about doing something else, you could just again say no, not now. I'm meditating just now. I'll look at you again later. Okay, we can start to soften now. We can start to soften our focus and broaden our awareness out to the whole body. So we're going to let go of this exercise in a moment. We're just going to bring the meditation to a close in a very gradual way. So firstly, broadening that awareness out to encompass your whole body. Feeling the sensations all in the body, our emotional state, how we are. You can feel the breath in the body, entering and leaving the body. And then beyond the body we can tune in to the sounds around us, tune in to our where we are in the room, our place in our environment, what's going on around us. And you may just also want to have an awareness of others around, either directly close to you or imaginatively as well. Just a sense that here we are meditating together on a Monday evening. And then in your own time, just bring this meditation to a close. Okay, great. So we'll do some questions in a moment, but so type them in the chat box if you'd like anything answered. But just to say, while you're thinking and writing, just to say that this one is really worth practicing a bit. Yeah, you'll notice we need to sort of get a handle a bit on your own habits and patterns, and you need to also get a feel for which situations this is good for and which it isn't. But particularly if you're prone to a bit of boredom in meditation, it can be very, very helpful to firstly recognise that you're experiencing boredom, and how you can do that is usually that you're thinking about these other sense desires, these other things that you could be doing, other experiences you could be having. So as soon as you clock onto that, you can just maybe apply the antidote of suppression and just recognise that you're not attending to your current experience as fully as you can. Yeah. And you often only have to create a little bit of room and the meditation will go well. And if you want to think about these things, all you have to do is wait till the end of the meditation, and then you can think about them as much as you want. So we're just trying to create a little bit of room at that moment in our meditations. Anyway, so I hope that's useful. Let's go and see if we've got any questions from Adam.
No questions at the moment.
No questions. Clearly explained that really, really well then. No, but seriously, if you've got anything, do drop them in. So after this live stream event, we will be having a Zoom discussion. So yeah, you can join us on that. And there's some people have said that they found it a bit hard to find the link. So you'll find the link to the Zoom discussion in the description of the YouTube channel. You can often also go on our website and click the button that says Zoom discussion, or you also will send out emails with the same links on. So they're all over the place. So you just need to have a look. Okay. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably start wrapping up now. So thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the alert bell to get notifications when we're live. So we've got 2 more of these meditation videos coming up before we go on to the next theme. So tune in for the final 2 of the series. So that's the following Monday and the Monday after that. And our next event on Wednesday is going to be what the Buddha said about becoming a Buddha. So if you want to find out about how to become a Buddha, tune in to that. So that's going to be with special guest Manjusia, who's a guest or speaker from the London Buddhist Centre. Any more?
One question from Amla Vajra.
Yeah, great.
He has asked, is it worth bringing in quite strong objects of desire as a kind of meditation in itself?
Oh, that's a good question. I wonder if that's a trick question. So I did wonder quite a bit about this meditation actually, because in a certain way you don't want to necessarily be encouraging people to bring in hindrances, if you see what I mean. Although we did this as an exercise, I wouldn't of course recommend it as a meditation practice. I think if you're like me, what you'll find is you don't actually need to cultivate any extra craving. Knowing Amalavajra, I'd like to maybe even suggest that might be the truth for him as well. You'll probably find that actually if you sit down, there'll be plenty enough craving for sense experience there already. So you probably won't need to go generating any. So I wouldn't recommend creating any. Just see what's there in a way. And the great thing is if you're not experiencing any, you just go with it. Yeah, just go with it. So if you're quite comfortable and still in the meditation, you'll probably find that actually there's quite a lot of pleasure and joy in your experience anyway, and you're probably quite concentrated, and you really don't need to bother trying to find hindrances where they're not there. I think a friend of mine once has said, if you haven't got any problems in your meditation, don't go looking for them. You'll find them anyway, soon enough. Good. Any more? That's it. Okay, great. Okay, great. So just to say, finally, we're all powered by your generosity. So everything we do here is dependent on people giving amounts of money to keep everything going. So at the moment, we're particularly looking for standing orders. So people offering to give monthly amounts. We need to find about £2,000 a month to keep all of our activities going now that we're not running physical classes. So please do consider giving if you can, if you're enjoying these streams and that they're useful to you, whether or not you're part of the Brixton Buddhist community. And you'll find the link again in the description, so you can give a one-off gift or you can give a regular standing order. So do just have a look down in the description. And then do tune in for the Zoom discussion. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break We're going to have a little tea break, so you can go to the bathroom or get a cup of tea if you want, and we'll start that Zoom discussion at 8:45. So I'm going to be hosting that. So do come in and we can have a discussion. And if you're new to meditation on Buddhism and you've not taken part in a discussion before, then do just come along. You can just listen. That's totally fine. You can just check us out and maybe join in if you want to. Okay, that's it for me. So yeah, I hope your meditation goes well this week, and stay safe and stay well, and do tune in next Wednesday for what the Buddha said about becoming a Buddha, and do subscribe to the channel. Okay, take care.